This is the Startup Tri-Valley podcast, featuring in-depth conversations with the leaders who are making the Tri-Valley the go-to ecosystem for science-based startups. I'm Yolanda Fintschenko from Startup Tri-Valley. Today we have with us Brian Wilson, Vice President of Office R&D and Clean Facilities for Colliers International and Daybreak Labs Commercial Real Estate Advisor. Brian, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege. I appreciate it.
So I feel like I've known you a really long time, and yet somehow I don't know this. Tell me and the audience about how you came to be doing what you're doing now professionally.
Yeah, so I was happily practicing law. I was practicing real estate and construction law in Silicon Valley, and I was just, I was representing real estate, developers, users, various companies, and I wanted to get, a little bit deeper into the transaction. I had folks telling me like, hey, you should think about commercial real estate brokerage as opposed to just practicing law. And so I really considered it and thought about it more. And concurrently, I was practicing law in the Silicon Valley, and I wanted to be sort of closer to home and work a little bit more in my backyard. Because we were living in Pleasanton at the time, and I was commuting into Silicon Valley. So just kind of started asking around, shopping around to brokerage firms and talking about my skill set, my experience, and just trying to find the right sort of landing spot for myself. And found a good firm to work with and landed there. And that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And just for our audience, can you explain what real estate brokerage is and how that's different from real estate law? Yeah.
So real estate brokerage is really just, it's just that it's brokering the deal. And it's more on the front end. So, just whether it's acquiring space for lease or acquiring space to purchase and acquire. It's brokering a deal between, a landlord developer or a tenant user, or between a seller and a buyer within commercial real estate. And what I particularly focus on is clean facilities or any sort of facilities that have a controlled environment or advanced facilities, particularly in MEPs, so mechanical, electrical, or plumbing. And that's kind of where I live, and that's been my sort of specialized skill set.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how did doing that kind of work bring you in touch with iGate and getting so involved in helping us build the startup ecosystem here in the Tri-Valley? Yeah,
good question. It's kind of funny to think back on that with all of our past and our experiences. But, and I did going into this, I thought back on it. And, when I made the pivot from practicing real estate and construction law to real estate brokerage, I was able to parlay some of my existing relationships with clients. But a lot of it was just ground up and more organic build. And so I got, entrenched in the ecosystem. And I really had to do some diving into to understand who were some of the players in the ecosystem, particularly in life sciences and like hard tech, again, because that was my focus. And then, got in touch with Brandon Cardwell, right? And then Brandon got me in touch with you. And so then Hitch, and then it just organically built from there, But it really is. It's finding folks who are players and connectors and collaborators and passionate and gumption, and like to build and collaborate and connect. Right. So that's how I kind of got involved there.
Right. And I remember that because I was still volunteering with iGate and I was doing East Bay Bio Network. And I know you were very helpful to us with several events, and currently you're a co-organizer of our Startup Tri-Valley Life Sciences Summit and have been for years now.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a labor of love.
And for people who don't know, Brandon Cardwell was executive director of iGate when you met him. He's now the director of innovation and economic development for the city of Livermore. And Hitch is Greg Hitchen,
Yes.
founder and co-founder and managing director for Tri-Valley Ventures, and both really pivotal people in building the startup Tri-Valley ecosystem. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk. So you've touched on how you kind of got connected and trying to basically build your connections into the sort of space that is most influenced by needing commercial real estate that have controlled engineered environments. So talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously there was a business connection, but you've done way more than just
again, a labor of love. A labor of love.
And it's been everything from helping with events, but I think most importantly, yes, it was a professional relationship as well. But talk a little bit about how you were able to kind of use all that knowledge to actually help us start Daybreak Labs in its new space. And so for, and maybe talk a little bit about what we were coming from and what we were trying to come to, and what a huge leap that was to go from a co-working space that was mainly focused on office to a co-working space that had purpose-built lab space to actually create a hard tech incubator.
Yeah.
And,
What was this?
and during the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're making me shake thinking about it again. Because it took us I want to say it was over a year and a half to actually secure space, going from it was a switch at the time.
Yeah.
And then Brandon got the cease and desist. Anyways, but so it was the switch at the time, and it was mostly office with questionable lab in the basement. But yeah, Brandon, so we connected, and he came to me. He's like, hey, we would like to have purpose-built lab, and he came to me because that was my bailiwick, that was my strike zone. But also he wanted to find existing lab infrastructure, and that can be difficult to find sometimes, and hence why it took a while. And also, we didn't end up finding something that was existing lab. It had to be built out. But then, part of the exercise too is finding a landlord who will do it, right? Especially when you don't have, significant revenue generating credit, right?
Right.
So we call it in industry a credit tenant. So it's more difficult to build that out. So
And the credit tenant here being iGate as a nonprofit.
Being a non-credit.
Non-credit.
Or, I mean, it's nice to have, but you have municipal funds, you know what I mean? So that's nice too. So that's great. Plus I believe you get your fiscal year is 2 years out, right?
Yes.
So, or you get budgeting, budget for 2 years out.
Yeah,
So that's great. So anyways, and that was during the pandemic. I think we started in the middle of 2020.
Wow.
So that's right when the pandemic hit, and we looked at everything out there. And Janelle helped out too.
Right. So Janelle Muranaka, our Daybreak Labs advisor for operations.
Yeah. So she helped us. She would come look at facilities, and because a lot of it is, again, it's MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and just seeing what currently existed, what infrastructure currently existed, to understand how we can expand or piggyback on those existing infrastructure to build out the lab that we need, so they can have legitimate, viable lab for these startups. And so we finally landed at where Daybreak Labs is now at Southfront in East Livermore, but even then, it was tough to get the landlord to build out the lab that we needed. But it was having everyone involved, like you and Janelle and others. It definitely was a team effort.
Yeah.
And then also part of that deal too was and again, this is Brandon and me and just folks collaborating and sort of critically thinking a little bit. Part of getting that deal done was actually getting two other users, S2 Genomics and Buzzkill Labs, also needing lab, because they didn't have lab over there at the time.
No,
Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yes, I remember when it
was all office.
There was no walls and
Well, it was office.
It was all
right?
office.
So
that
current landlord had just acquired the asset and wasn't sure exactly what they wanted to do with it, and we convinced them to do that conversion that folks were talking about at the time, early pandemic, right? But it was still early in that process of office conversion to lab. But we pretty much occupied or leased the three users almost the entire floor there,
right?
And so we kind of collectively bargained, right? And that was a little unique strategy. With Daybreak Labs and kind of S2 leading that charge, right? And then Buzzkill Labs was a smaller user, so didn't have much leverage or bargaining power. But we did it.
Yeah.
And I think we signed in March of 2022, and then the build out was finished, I think, in like September of that year.
September of 2023. Yeah.
Was it? I thought it was 2022. Okay.
Maybe it was. September of 2022. Yeah, you're right. Gosh, it's been a long time.
I know.
It's not long and also long.
Yeah. So, but that was great. It was such a joy to be a part of that, and that was part of me just trying to get entrenched in the ecosystem and showing. Folks, this is what I can do and the value that I can bring, and Brandon was also asking me at the time. I remember he wanted to do marketing materials for the Tri-Valley and talking about the life sciences ecosystem at the time and talking about the lab inventory. And so at that time I was, one of the only ones tracking lab inventory. And so that was helpful for him too. So anyways, it was a great project. And it was a privilege to be a part of it.
Well, and we literally would not be here without you, Brian.
Thank you.
So I know that was a huge motivator in terms of inviting you to be a Daybreak Labs advisor for our companies. And so for our listeners who may not be aware, Daybreak Labs is the Tri-Valley's first and only hard tech incubator. It is, as Brian said, over in East Livermore, and offers about 2,500 square feet of shared lab co-working space and additional office space as well. And it can house, it's capable of supporting life sciences and other hard tech companies like climate tech and deep tech. And so these are really early stage companies. It's designed to help the companies that are seed and pre-seed. So they're not yet at a point where they're seeking private space. But of course, our goal in incubating them is that they raise their next round and are driven by their goals and the requirements of their investors to seek private space here in the Tri-Valley. And so, that's what inspired us to ask you to be a Daybreak Labs advisor in commercial real estate, because space planning is something that especially a technical founder may not be thinking of while they're still de-risking their technology in the lab, but it's super important. So can you talk a little bit about why you advise companies and how you advise companies for Daybreak?
Yeah. So, and you're right. So to piggyback on what you just said, they don't really think about it, and frankly, they shouldn't. And that's what I tell my clients, particularly younger, startup clients, is you focus on IP, you focus on product development or developing your services, whether it's product or services, you focus on that, and I'll help you find space, and we'll work through it, right? So we'll work through from building out a space program, so understanding the programming for the functions of your space, and then building out a space plan to take those functions and put it together into a space plan, and then let's figure out, how much space you need and what type of infrastructure you need. And then we go out there and find it. And so, but for the startup founders at Daybreak Labs that I've helped and advised, sure, some of it is, okay, you're ready to graduate from the space. Let's go out there and find you space and do the things we just talked about, building out a space program, space plan, survey, tour, lease negotiation, build out space, occupy and operate. But a lot of it has been, so there's been some of that, but a lot of it has just been, I'd like to say with my background as an attorney is, I just like to problem solve, and just, help assist. Like, you give me an issue, give me a problem that you have, and we'll go out and problem solve. And that goes back to what we talked about in this community, is just having connectors, collaborators. And a lot of it is, if they have a question, I'll connect them with, if I can't answer it, then I'll connect them with someone who can. And just being like, I've, just developed a network of professionals over the years that can assist with all different types of issues, particularly for science-based companies, whether that's particular kind of permitting with a certain government agency or jurisdiction, or a certain kind of special build-out or special needs for a controlled environment, whether it's, engineering services or architectural services to even, fractional CFOs. And so, they provide, they ask me, they tell me the problem or issue that they have, and I go out there and try to connect them. If I can't do it, then connect them with someone who can. And again, that's just all part of the collaborative network that we have at Daybreak Labs and the Tri-Valley. Yeah,
that's great. So what I hear you saying is you're definitely inviting companies to lean on your expertise, so they don't have to.
Yes.
Try and acquire that expertise in-house, and then, but at the same time, it's a long play working with an early stage company. They may be talking to you. Hopefully they're talking to you a couple of years before they need space. But it may be a good 3 to 5 years before any of these companies have raised enough that they can justify having space. And what it sounds like you're doing in the meantime is just offering them your expertise and your network that can help them answer questions. That could even be, I know we had a question at one point of if we were asking for some confidence that we truly had the space configured the correct way for BSL2, and you were able to connect us to WB Engineering, and they were able to tour the facility and basically confirm that everything was exactly the way it needed to be, and they were also willing to do that at no charge, which was great for a nonprofit like us. And I think that it seems like you're really resourceful in connecting other service providers that also want to build relationships with early stage companies who may just be asking at this point so they can write the costs in to their budget when they go to raise their next round. And so, that's...
I try to work with, and I try to build a network of professionals that are incredibly competent at what they do, and they're also willing to see the big picture at times, and maybe provide some services up front to have a relationship, for the long run. Because, especially if it's for a startup, launching out of Daybreak Labs or any startup for that matter, just not needing that much space. That isn't the deal or the transaction that you're hoping for, right? It's somewhere down the road. And so a lot of the network that I build, they understand that and see that and appreciate that too. So yeah.
So one of the things that strikes me is, and Janelle mentioned this in her podcast, is there are things, space sounds very, when you're talking about startups in an ecosystem, can sound like one of the least sexy parts, right, of building your ecosystem. But the reality is, if your region doesn't have the right space, you're not going to be able to support growth of startups, even if they can start where you are. So it's one of the most critical factors. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about, first of all, for the founders who want to stay in the Tri-Valley, if you can talk a little bit about, especially if they're in hard tech, if they're life sciences, climate tech, the prospects for them to find space here in the Tri-Valley, and then also the timeline. So if you're, say you've raised your pre-seed and maybe you're raising your seed, and you kind of have okay, maybe in 3 years I'll have my my seed raised, and I'll be somewhere between seed and Series A. So when should a company start talking to you? Particularly if they're here in the Tri-Valley, they like being in the Tri-Valley, they want to grow in the Tri-Valley, and then what are they going to be able to find the space that they need to grow?
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a few questions there. So, like, first, I mean, it is unequivocal. Every time I'm talking to, particularly a founder, I mean, as companies mature, they understand and appreciate they need to, come to me or start looking for real estate earlier. But, they think, hey, my lease isn't, expiring until, 9 months or 6 months out. I'm fine. I got time. And, my response to them is, no, we should be looking at things right now, looking at space and understanding, and just, you should be talking to me, and we should be understanding your space needs and your infrastructure needs. And it's all free. So, I mean, we should talk about it,
Right.
So, but anything under, I mean, like, my rule of thumb is anything under 10,000 square feet, you should probably be looking and start the conversation and start preliminary tours and surveys about a year out. And then, anything bigger than that, I mean, it depends, but let's call it, 18 months to 2 years, especially if you're going ground up. If you're building ground up, it should be, 2 to 3 years out. And it all depends if there's significant power needs, with the power impacts that we're having, in the Bay Area. I mean, it should be 3 years out, if you're needing something, above, 5 megawatts of power. So anyway, so it really depends, but, especially for just, startups, Daybreak Labs startups, it really is like 12 months out. And it's a good thing. It gives us, again, a chance to sort of understand your space needs, your infrastructure needs. And it gives me the opportunity to go out there and show you what exists, because the dilemma is being able to find adequate space that can accommodate your special needs, right? Whether the clean environment that you need, whether it's clean room, whether it's biolab, whether it's fabrication, is going out and finding that space, because being a startup, typically this stuff that type of infrastructure is expensive to build. And when it's expensive to build, the landlord will say, okay, well, give us some term, right? So give us, 5 years, or maybe if it's a significant build out, right, then it's, give us 7 years, but you don't want to give that much time in term, right? You want 2 years, 3 years, to get to your next milestone, to reach your next milestone or your next funding round. So there's that dilemma. So the best thing that you can do as a startup is find space that has that existing infrastructure as close as possible, right, to accommodate your needs. And again, so that's why it's important to reach out early and often, and really let me do that work for you. Plus, you also get to see. It's kind of funny. A lot of my clients, by the end of the transaction, they'll feel like they're real estate experts, just because we've seen so many spaces and just different iterations of space, right? And then for different price points and different landlords and different lease terms. So, you get to see what's out there and how quickly space that you need is being leased up or not, So it's just a good benchmark. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So start early and often.
Yes. And
it's not. What I'm really hearing though is that it's there. That if you are, if you are putting the time into planning for your company and reaching out to someone like you early on, you're going to be able to find the space that you need, the controlled engineered environment, either existing or built out, with either enough time or money. So giving you enough lead time to find the turnkey space or enough money to do the build out.
Exactly.
And so that the answer is yes, you can absolutely grow into whatever controlled engineered space that you need here in the Tri-Valley.
I mean, look, it either exists or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, there is enough sort of supply and there is motivation from the landlords to make a deal and get it done. The one thing I will say though, and this is, sorry, and I'm skipping ahead here, but something to look out for in the future when you talk about, what's something that, you think may be a problem for the next 5 years is, we've been hit a little bit in all markets have with life sciences. And there's been a decent amount of give back space, for, biolab, which means there is space out there. So that's great. But if your particular space doesn't exist, then there may be some reticence from the landlord, right, to build it out. And I've done so much groundwork in, over the years, and it was easier during the pandemic, right? Because there was a lot of lease velocity for life science companies. But just telling these landlords, build it out, build it and they will come, or build it and you'll get multiple generations, multiple users. It'll have residual value, if you build it out. And then now that they have built out some space and they've had some give back, I'm probably going to have to go back to square one to explaining, hey, build it out, and you got shadow space or you have available space, build that out and let's do this deal. So that may be an issue, but let me handle that, right? So yeah, I'll handle that.
Yeah, and it sounds like too the beauty of controlled engineered spaces is that there's some transferability. So just because one industry is flagging, if you have another growth industry that, the fundamentals of what people need is things like the MEP, right? And so that's true also if you're a physics-based company or if you're a fabrication company. So someone who needs to control their HVAC could just as easily be an Unchained Labs or Bright Silicon Technologies, right?
Or Vector Atomic. So I think one example is representing one of my clients is Vector Atomic. They're in the quantum sensor space, and we ended up leasing a facility that was previously occupied by Unchained Labs. There's a lot of biolab or other just laboratory rooms, controlled environment rooms, and we're able to convert a lot of those because, and again, it goes back to MEPs. It goes to what you're trying to control, right? Is it humidity? Is it cleanliness, particle count, right? Is it temperature? And we can adjust some of that infrastructure, some of those controls, the lab infrastructure, and convert that to a different use. And that's what we're able to do there. So, I mean, yes, there's crossover, and that's why, I don't just do biolab, or I just don't do chemical lab. It's controlled environments and advanced facilities, and then there's going to be crossover between different kind of users, and you can take advantage of that.
And that's great for those early stage companies that are looking for that 2 to 3 year lease, because they're more likely to find something in a situation where you have one industry where there's kind of give back, and if they're not in that industry, then they can take advantage of that existing footprint.
And one thing I've tried to explain to landlords is like, let them come, and see the big picture, because once companies come to the Tri-Valley, they typically stay. And they plant a flag. And so if we do give them the opportunity, hey, 2-3 year lease, let them reach that milestone, or let them, show validation and then get secure additional funding. Then they'll go from, 2,000 square feet to 10 to 15 to 30 to 40, and, maybe become, next 10X Genomics, right? So yeah, but it's important that the community needs to appreciate that, right? And understand that. So yeah.
That's great. Well, so you've talked a little bit about how you've been helping companies, and certainly how you help Daybreak Labs. What really motivated you to donate this much time? Like, I get it at the beginning. You don't know people, you're forging connections. What's held you and kept you? And I mean, you're more than just helping people get into space. Literally, I feel like if any of our members just needs to talk to someone, they could contact you and say,
I'm also a therapist.
Yes. No. But I mean, needs to talk, like, make a connection. You're a connector, and you're doing a lot more than just connecting people to space. So I'm curious, what's keeping you going? Why so deep, Brian?
Yeah, you're right, because it is a decent amount of time. It's just I'm passionate about it, and it is great. It's so rewarding, like seeing these companies grow, and just being a part of it. I don't want to just parachute in for a deal and walk away. I tell everyone, hey, I'm soup to nuts. Start to finish, and then also after that, after you're in the space, let's strategize, for the next space,
Right.
and really understand space needs and growth patterns. But it's so rewarding to see these companies succeed. And they do so much more. And, just building an ecosystem, building a community, employing people and their families, and providing sustenance. I mean, I know but it really is. That's what these companies do. And just to be a part of that, is exciting. And you never know,
Right.
you never know who the next entrepreneur is going to be. And that's what's great about it. Yes, we have some serial entrepreneurs, but we also have first timers with a great idea or a good IP. And it's and just run with it, and they were maybe just a scientist at their last job. I don't want to say just a scientist, but they were a scientist, and now they want to be an entrepreneur. And it's cool to connect them, and they're all so intelligent, and I'm working with all these, intelligent people, but, just being able to help them with a connection or find a solution for their problem that I just happen to have just because I've been around, for a while and,
Right.
and doing these for these companies, but
Right.
just to be able to make that connection or solve that problem, it's incredibly rewarding. And just to work with the other collaborators in the community, such as yourself, but everyone, and even I listened to Janelle's podcast too, and just hearing some of her stories and just laughing
Yeah.
at them, and putting together the lab benches
Right.
at Daybreak Labs, right?
Right.
After we did that's what I'm talking about, full service, soup to nuts, Brian Wilson. But we do the deal's done, but we got lab benches that weren't put together to save a
Right.
couple bucks, and then they got to be put together, right? They're not going to put together themselves.
Right.
So helping out with that.
That was a long
with you and
day.
Janelle. And it was a long
And there
couple
was
days.
no air conditioning.
No.
Yeah.
No, but right. So it's a great story.
July.
Yeah. So it's cool, and it's turned to a story that we're talking about on a podcast now. So
I think of
that's
it
great.
every time we walk into the lab, and I kind of flash back to that picture where there's no walls, and then there's just us, several of us just building benches.
So
Yeah.
and it's been a great ride, and I hope it continues to be. And again, so I love working with companies, founders, all different, folks within the organizations, and also just the fellow collaborators too. It's a great community, and even listening to Sam Rad's
Yes,
podcast on here too.
right.
But that's one thing that he said before he was even in the community. I invited him to some events, and he went and just welcomed with open arms, and had some questions and got answers from folks in the community, and it's a great community that we have here, I think.
I think so too. And I think what makes it great is that we're building it. So we're building a community. Of course, we're inviting people like Sam Rad to join us,
yes.
but we're building a community for ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And I think that comes across loud and clear, from you and others,
Yeah.
whether they're entrepreneurs or advisors or both.
Yeah.
Is that you all are building the community you want to work in and that you want to live in. So
Well, let me actually circle back on something too, because when I was in Silicon Valley, I would go to events, and right, because I'm always trying to be involved, right? But I'd go to events, and I was like, I have no connection here. This is after we'd already moved from Silicon Valley to Pleasanton, and I'm like, why am I going to these things? I don't really care that much. I'm sorry, but then I started going to some events in the Tri-Valley, and I was like, wow, we got like a cool little ecosystem, and this was after Quanta Life and Quanta Life Mafia, but like creating that flywheel, it was starting to happen, and it was really neat to see. So yes, you talk about creating this community, and I don't know if I'm creating anything. I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I've always said, right, my mantra is rising tide raises all ships.
right.
And I think that's what we're doing. And it's cool to see the ecosystem grow, and it's cool to do things like the Tri-Valley Life Sciences Summit and broadcast what we're doing to folks outside the community and people inside the community to help validate it, you know? So, So it's cool to see. I always say this is cool to see in my backyard, you know, and like this is my community, and I wanna lift it up. So
Or
I do what I can to lift it up.
Being a contributor is, you know, I think that's what we see is I feel like everyone who's working in the startup Tri-Valley ecosystem wants to be, they're a contributor, and there's some personal pride in it because that what they're contributing to is their community.
And it's contagious.
Yeah.
So I guarantee now that Sam Rad has been offered up so much help and services, you know, coming into the community with his startup Life Foundry, now I think he's going to return the favor.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and actually I know he already has.
Yes.
But same thing, right? It's just contagious.
Right.
It's cool.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you know, you've advised several companies, Daybreak Labs. What has surprised you the most about your experience as advisor?
What surprised me the most really is the amount of information that like clients will give to me. And maybe it's just because you know, I'm able to connect them or help solve a problem. But even as an attorney, I feel like companies or C-suite, you know, kind of keep you at a distance, right? Because of billable hours or, you know what I mean? They'd only want to share so much. But, you know, as a commercial real estate advisor, it's, you know, I hear everything. You know, it's just they tell me about their strategy on a go forward basis. And it's also helpful for me to do my job too, right? Is because then we can look out, like I said, 12, 24 months in advance and really understand sort of space needs, especially if they're starting to scale and commercialize, right? Because then we can get into manufacturing or other different business units. But so that's been a little surprising to me. But it's great. You know, it's welcome. So, you know, keeping transparent, folks.
Well, and maybe it's a little bit, you know, a little bit a pull, not just the sense that you give that you're there to help them solve all their problems.
Yeah.
You know, it probably invites like, well, I'm gonna share what's on my mind right now, just in case Brian knows someone.
That's probably it. You know, no good deed goes unpunished, right? So, yeah.
So, you know, you've talked a little bit about this, I think, in your explanation about why you feel there's such a strong pull to contribute. But what do you love about living and working in the Tri-Valley?
Well, kind of just that, like living and working, you know, in the Tri-Valley. But look, I'm a rah guy. So I love the Tri-Valley. I think we have so many resources and such a precious community here. You know, it's just the makeup of the Tri-Valley is great with respect to, you know, we got such a mature and robust workforce. You know, we have strong companies. We have, you know, legacy companies as well as, you know, younger companies that are up and coming and scaling and building revenue. And we also got a nice little brain trust, right? And a lot of government resources from, you know, both national labs, Lawrence Livermore National Labs in Sandia. So that's great. And again, just the community of collaborators, and just over my short span here, I'll say, just see the growth and collaboration that I've already seen in such a short span of time, but it's been
I was
a good
going to say,
amount
how
of
long
time.
has it been?
Yeah, it's been a while. But you know, again, that's rewarding to see, you know, and that's what I appreciate is, yes, living here, working here, and being a part of its growth, you know. That's incredibly rewarding to me. And that's what I love.
That's fantastic. So what, you know, you mentioned a little bit a challenge as an industry leader and a co-builder of the Tri-Valley startup ecosystem. What do you see as the the upcoming, next few years, challenges and opportunities for our region?
Yeah. So challenges is kind of goes back to what I said before a little bit about, having to influence and persuade certain landlords to build the lab or just controlled environment, just advanced infrastructure for these smaller deals or questionable credit, just startup credit companies, and then now to get some of that space back, that's been tough for them. So to basically persuade them, hey, let's do it again. I'm telling you, because there's a lot more activity in the market for lab and clean space. So that's been positive. So anyway, persuading them to do this, let's build it out again, and on shorter term leases, you know what I mean? That may be more success because that's a big burn, right? It's a big burn for these companies. For their lease obligation.
Right.
So there's that. So and maybe, public funding, just with some of the pullbacks, from the federal government, I think that may sting a little bit with NIH, SBIR, so, because it's not, everyone thinks this is all private, funding, VC, a lot of it is, federal or even state, but just, public funding as well. Or it's some sort of gap fill, so that may be an issue for startups, as you get larger, that's probably not going to be an issue. And then opportunities, I mean, there's space now because there's been a decent amount of give back. So there is space. So if you need space, if you need lab space, come out here and let's talk, and we'll see if you can land something. Especially, I mean, we have reasonable, I don't like to say cheap, but reasonable rental rates, out here as well. So, and good space, so a lot of this stuff is newer product, whereas you get some old legacy space in certain other markets, so I think there's some opportunity there.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, and I think some other opportunities is I think you're going to start seeing, we talked about QuantaLife for a little bit and that flywheel that was created. I think you'll probably see that with other mature companies that have maybe come out of that flywheel, like 10X Genomics.
Right.
There's already been some spinoffs out of there. And I think that you're going to see another flywheel. I think that we just have a viable flywheel now. And I think you'll start seeing younger companies. I mean, that was our first sort of homegrown unicorn, 10X Genomics. And it's like, I think it's time. Let's have another,
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think we will see that.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily going to be in life sciences either,
Right. Well, I was thinking our other unicorn was AI, right?
Yeah.
And that's, another one where you hope, or I think, the original founders already founding another company and expect to see hopefully some more companies coming out of that.
Yeah.
So,
I am starting to see more companies in lasers, photonics, optics,
advanced manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is good.
Yeah.
This is good. Yeah.
That's great. That's very hopeful.
Yeah.
And so kind of pivoting from the broader to the narrower, like, can you talk a little bit about, what are the attributes of a good advisor for Daybreak Labs? So we, for people who don't know, we have a network of advisors like Janelle, like Brian. They may advise us as an organization, but they also advise our companies. And so you advise our companies. And you've seen, gotten a chance to interact with our advisors, and we're hopefully going to get every single one of them on the pod.
Love it.
But can you talk a little bit about what you think makes a good Daybreak Labs advisor?
I think, first of all, knowing your skill set or strike zone, but also, and, mine being in, clean facilities, commercial real estate, but also understanding, appreciating, not just limiting that, and just really understanding that you can provide other services or value, again, with just opening up your network or connecting, you know what I mean? And that, thinking, oh, I don't know if they're going to need my skill set or something. Still come and find out, come reach out to you,
Right.
know? and see if there's a need, for that particular skill set. But again, it's really just one, understanding your particular skill set, but then also understanding that you have other skills and you can provide other value to these companies as well, and just be willing to talk and listen to them. And because sometimes they just don't know. They have a problem and they just need to figure it out. And sometimes they don't know which advisor to reach out to.
Right.
So either I'll send, hey, maybe you should speak to this advisor, or I'll reach out to another advisor and be like, hey, this is an issue that this individual's having. Like, how can we solve this for them? And so again, there's that collaborative nature, and just, leave your pride at the door a little bit,
right.
You know what I mean, with some of this stuff. But just doing everything you can to help these companies, because that's what we're trying to do, is see them succeed. And then again, once you start here, they typically stay here.
Right.
Right. So so again, it's a win. It's rising the tide for the Tri-Valley, So
it sounds like some of the secret sauce of being a good advisor is having the heart for it. Like, you're here to build, you're here to contribute, understanding what your unique strength is for that a startup can have, and recognize that there may be other strengths that they wind up leaning on.
Yeah.
And then being willing to lean on another advisor when you realize, wow, this is a problem that needs to be solved, and I'm not sure I can solve it.
Yeah.
Or help them in the way that they were thinking.
Yep.
And opening and being, like you said, leave your pride out the door, and being willing to say, it's not going to be me, but here's who you should talk to.
Yeah. I mean, that's all part of it, right? Is again, I'm sorry, it's problem solving, and it's putting together the puzzle for them.
I love it. Yeah, keeping your eye on the problem. It's the same advice that advisors get, right?
Yep.
Become the expert in the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true. That's why it's a saying. Yeah.
And what do you think is the value of Daybreak Labs to founders and to building the startup ecosystem in the Tri-Valley?
I mean, it's what we talked about with that burn, right? That burn is so precious for these companies. And so being able to provide space at a discount, and also not committing to 3-5 years, God forbid, you know what I mean? So you have an opportunity to generate data or validate your IP or whatever it is you're trying to creating the product to develop, or and also the equipment, right? Because that equipment is expensive. So being able to use and piggyback off of that equipment, I think, is important for them. Again, controlling the burn, and then also just the collaborative network, right?
The
and
community.
It's not just the advisors, by the way, even the residents, you know what I mean?
The other companies.
They all collaborate.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see at other incubators, I'm not going to say any names, but people are protecting their IP, and signing confidentiality, and I feel like with Daybreak, it's a lot of collaborating, and it's just hey, I'm actually seeing these kind of results, what do you think I can do, or what do you think I can change, or what do you think I should control for, and you see a lot of that. And it's great. Even just having Friday afternoon pitches, right? And getting feedback from everyone, in the community with advisors and also residents and stuff. Yeah. I think all that's important. And, you even got the George Farquhars, right? Who just love being a part of the community, right? And it goes both ways. He loves asking questions and loves providing solutions or advice, you know?
Right.
So all that's, I think it's incredibly, I know it's incredibly valuable to these companies because I talk to them, but for those companies who aren't there, that's the value that you can glean from it, from being a part of Daybreak Labs.
That's amazing. It still comes down to community.
Yeah.
So yeah. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk about?
No, I feel like we covered everything, right? The whole gamut.
So too.
No, I think we covered everything. And I think my, sort of passion for the community comes out in what I do and how I really do. I just love to help these companies through any stage, right? Any stage of the business cycle, whether it's these startups to, public companies. It's something, I enjoy doing and being a part of. And, I hope this community just, continues to grow and expand, and the companies that do benefit from Daybreak Labs and the sort of startup community give back, and then again, it's kind of just keep creating this flywheel.
Right.
So,
yeah. We're building that virtuous cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. So,
yeah.
but
well, great. Well, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for all you do for Daybreak Labs as a co-organizer for Startup Tri-Valley's Life Sciences Summit that's coming up on October 15th.
Yep.
And all the things you're doing in between. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast.
It's a labor of love. No, thank you. It's an honor to be a part of the podcast and be a part of Daybreak Labs and the ecosystem. So thank you.